Good morning, Patrick. I hope you're doing fine. Hello, if there is anybody else. Hello, welcome to my podcast. I have your cup, of course, the cup you gave me. If you're watching the video, you can see it here. But now I will try um, to talk in a way that you also can listen only. Because the good news is, I'm so proud of myself. I was able to I could do it. I'm proud of myself. I could put this podcast on Spotify. Although I'm not sure many people will listen to it, but it's on Spotify and you can see it here on the screen. Well, anyhow, it's called French from Scratch. So I put everything, all the episodes, 3 until now, so where I'm talking or simply the podcast to listen to. So they are on Spotify. But what will I do? I go back to my file. You know that here under this video, I always post the file. So we are back to our file, French from Scratch. Good. So if you see the file, but maybe you don't, you will see that every time I put the date, I put the number of the video and then the number of the lesson. So I scroll. So the first lesson, lesson 1, then with lesson 2. And then we have lesson 3. And that is, that is today. So the 8th of August, the number of the video is not yet there. I still have to put it there as soon as I post it. And so lesson 3. Ordering a drink. Yes, one thing more I have to say. So when I was posting the podcasts on Spotify, the first one is a video. I don't know, but I think I erased already just the audio. But then the following ones are just the audio. So you can follow me by video on YouTube and the audio on Spotify if you want to. Good. So what are we going to do today? We are going to order a drink because remember, we are on the Grand Place. We meet each other there, but now we have to order a drink. We went to I think it was the Café Liégeois. Liège is a city in Belgium. If you don't know, we didn't go there together. So in this video or in this podcast, I explain the sentences. But if this is too easy for you, you can immediately skip to the next one, the next audio, which will then be audio, I think 4. I will give it a name on Spotify. And you can just simply listen to it because I think you are quite good in learning languages. So maybe this is too easy for you. Okay, so this is only for the people who need it. Ordering a drink, and in fact, I should have said it also in English, which is commander une boisson. Commander is to order. Et une boisson, well, you will see it comes from the verb boire is to drink. Boisson is a drink. Commander une boisson. So I will, underneath every sentence I say here, I will write the translation in English. I will put it in red as soon as I'm finished. And then if you have the document in front of you, you will also see that to the right side, I always put the full verb, the infinitive, I used in that sentence. As I said before, you don't worry too much about that for the moment. I will talk about the verbs when I've finished, but try just to be impregnated, like totally like submerged by the French language and not to think too much about grammar. Okay, so I am saying to you, on est bien ici. And remember that in French, instead of saying nous, we, and normally it's nous, but very often people use on when you speak. On, because then you have the third person singular for the verb. French conjugation really hard. So instead of saying nous sommes bien ici, I say to you on est bien ici. Est is a form of être, to be. So in English it would be we are fine, or we are, I will say good, because bien is in fact good, or rather well, but I will translate it here as good. You know that sometimes my translation in English is not good. It's just that you see every single word that's translated. So we are good here. Ici is here. And est is the verb être, to be. And you say, oui, très bien. Yes, very good. Okay. And then I say, tu peux demander la carte. I told you also that you can start most questions in French with est-ce que. Est-ce que, it's some kind of a word you do not really translate, but it could be do you, did you. It really means is it so that. But what you can also do is you just take a normal sentence, like subject, verb, and you go up with the intonation, and then you make it a question. So instead of saying est-ce que tu peux, I'm just saying tu peux demander la carte. So it is really you can ask. La carte is the menu. Yes, it's not really, in some situations it could be like a card, but it's the menu. You can ask the menu. Peux, tu peux, you can is the verb pouvoir, and then tu peux, you can. You can is followed by an infinitive. Demander. Demander is not to demand. We call it a false friend. Demander is to ask. Demander. Okay, and so you say, je vais essayer. Je vais. I'm going. Really, I go. But here I have to say I'm going, otherwise it's not correct in English. I'm going to try. Je vais essayer. Je vais is the verb aller. It's an exceptional verb. Why? It changes in every person. It's really an irregular verb. An irregular verb, I will talk about it later. And then you have the verb. Of course, I'm going takes the infinitive, essayer, and essayer is to try. I'm going to try. So then you ask, Monsieur, maybe I should put it on the next page. Yes, Monsieur, la carte, s'il vous plaît. So Monsieur is sir. That's how you call people, huh? Monsieur, Monsieur, Monsieur. If it's a lady, you can say Madame or Mademoiselle. Now, recently, you call everybody Madame. Before there was a difference. You said Mademoiselle when a girl was not married, like a young girl, and then Madame if the person is married. But then, of course, it's hard to know. Of course, if it's really a little girl, which will not be the case here, you would say Mademoiselle. But okay, let me put it here between brackets that if it's not a man, you would say Madame. If you don't want to say Monsieur or Madame, because you know that recently, it's not so very fashionable anymore to say Sir or Ma'am. So you could just say S'il vous plaît, s'il vous plaît, s'il vous plaît, if you call someone, okay? But here I say Monsieur, la carte, s'il vous plaît. Sir, the menu, please. Okay, I think that's quite clear. And then instead of saying A and P, because A, it's me, Miss A, and P, it's you, Patrick, but then serveur, that's the waiter. You see the word here? Serveur. Okay, and what does the waiter say? He says, bonjour, voici la carte. So he says, hello, good day, bonjour. Voici, that's what you say when you give something to someone. So in English, you will say, here you are. But voici is really, here it is, please take it. So voici la carte. Let me translate it by, here you have the menu. Okay? Voici la carte. So voici, anything you give, it's voici. And you say, and that one I think you know, merci monsieur, thank you sir. That I think is not so hard. And then I ask you, tu prends uniquement un café? Tu prends, we had already the verb prendre, I think it's to take. So you take only, uniquement, it's like uniquely, uniquement, a coffee, un café. In fact, café is the place where you are. It's a bar, but it's also the coffee. You know, this is un café. You take, yeah, I have so many cups here already. So that's what you hear. You take only a coffee. And then I ask, ou aussi un croissant, or also a croissant, or also a croissant. Un croissant, one of those nasal sounds, croissant. Don't say the ending, don't say croissant. There's nothing at the end, croissant. Good. Next question. So you say, je vais regarder la carte. So je vais, now you know it comes from the verb aller, which is to go. So you say, I'm going to regarder, to look. And now watch out. In English, it's to look at something. Look at the menu. But in French, the verb regarder does not have any preposition. So there's no at, no on, no nothing. It's just regarder something. So I'm going to look at a menu. And I say, bonne idée. I don't think I have to translate that, but it means good idea. Tu prends du café, du thé ou du chocolat chaud. Tu prends, we had it already, you take. Du café is coffee. Du thé is tea. Ou is or. Du chocolat chaud. Or hot chocolate. Yeah. Okay, now I have to say, and we will talk about that later, not today. You have this du, sometimes de la or de, but starting with a D as an article, is not at all translated in English. So du, de la, de doesn't exist. We don't translate it. Du café is coffee, du thé is tea, du chocolat chaud is hot chocolate. Okay? So chaud is hot. You take coffee, tea, or I need my question mark. Good. And you say, je prends un café. Why is this wrong? Yeah, maybe in English you will say, I drink, you drink, I drink. Yeah, but I leave it like this. Sorry. Je prends un café. I take a coffee. Okay. I ask you, petit ou grand? I think you know that one because I know that sizes in the US, very often you have petit. So petit is small, grand is big. So small or big, petit ou grand. And you say, grand, bien sûr, je suis américain. Grand, bien sûr. Big, of course, I am American. And did you hear that I link the je suis, I am, to the A of américain? So I say, je suis américain. I am American. I will check later when I finished if I wrote any mistakes, but I don't think so. So je suis is again the verb être, to be. I ask you, avec du lait, with milk, and you see again in English it's milk, and in French it's du lait. Because so in French you never have a noun or a substantive alone. There is the, le, la, lait in front of it, or there is du, de, la, de, but that is not translated in English, but there's always a small word in front of the noun or the substantive. So with milk, good. And you say oui, beaucoup de lait. Yes, a lot of milk. Beaucoup de, lot of. OK. C'est un lait russe alors. C'est, that's a very interesting thing, very, very important. C'est means it is. The little C in front means it. It is a Russian milk then. Alors means, hola, yeah, here I made a mistake. It's Russian. Now, before we called it a Russian milk, un lait russe. But as I say here, mais aujourd'hui, on dit un café latte à l'italienne. So, why is this a mistake? No. So, mais, I think, okay, I will do that later. So, mais, but, aujourd'hui, today, on dit, so the on is we, but it's also in general one, which I would now translate by you. You say, one says, no, let me translate by one. That's more, I think it's clearer for you. But today, one says, a café latte. I think you say the same. And I say all'italienne, and all'italienne means in the Italian way. In the Italian way. All'italienne. Okay, good. So you say then, yeah, okay, so on dit, one says, dit, comes from the verb dire. I wrote it here. Dire means to say. I will organize a bit better my document, my file later. D'accord, and d'accord is a very good word. D'accord means I agree. In English, I think you would say, okay, that's fine. So, d'accord, un café latte. Un café latte. Et je prends aussi. We know those words. And I take also, aussi. So, prends, évidemment, of course, it's prendre. So you ask me then, qu'est-ce qu'on mange en Belgique comme petit déjeuner? Qu'est-ce qu'on mange? Mange, it's a new verb, it's to eat. Qu'est-ce qu'on mange en Belgique comme petit déjeuner? And so to say what in French, you can or say que, or you can say qu'est-ce que. You know, it sounds a bit like the est-ce que, is it so that? If you want to ask what, you say qu'est-ce que. And why is qu'est-ce que better for you than simply que? It's because if your accent is not perfect in French and you start with qu'est-ce que, people know you're going to ask a question. And people are very attentive because they know this is going to be a question. So in the beginning, when you're learning French, start with qu'est-ce que. Qu'est-ce qu'on mange? What does one eat? En Belgique, in Belgium, of course, comme petit déjeuner, as, and petit déjeuner, in fact, it's like, you call it small lunch, but it means breakfast. But really, it says small lunch. Okay, I will say now breakfast, otherwise you will be totally confused. But what you eat at noon, yes, that will be déjeuner. We will do that later. So you ask me, what do people eat in Belgium as breakfast? So my answer is, moi, je prends un café, mais le sucré est très populaire. So moi, me, but I know in English you will say I, but let me leave the me at least here so that you see. I take un café, coffee, and I must say I take more than one, so I should say I take 4 coffees. A bit exaggerated. So I take a coffee, mais, it's but, we had that, le sucré. And see here, I did not write le sucre, sucre, without the E at the end means sugar. But if you say sucré, E, you see the accent? There's an accent on the last E, then you pronounce it E. Le sucré means everything that's with sugar, like sweet. But the sweet, and I will write between brackets, stuff, sweet stuff. Maybe it's better to use food, but it means just everything sweet is very popular. Très populaire. So, what do people eat? I'm telling you, un croissant au choco ou à la confiture, une couque au chocolat ou d'autres viennoiseries. So, I'm telling you what people eat in Belgium. Un croissant, I think you would say a croissant. Au choco. Well, au, we also will talk about that later. Au is the contraction of à le. With chocolate. Au means with. A croissant with chocolate. And in fact, it's chocolate paste. You know, this Nutella kind of thing, like the spread, like a chocolate spread. I will write that. Chocolate spread. Ou, that you know is or. À la confiture. Well, now you see we have au when it's masculine and à la when it's feminine. À la confiture with jam. Don't pay too much attention to the au and the à la and all the different things. We will do that systematically, Patrick. Just try to be immersed by this French language. Okay? Une couque au chocolat. A chocolate bun. Let's call it a bun. Une couque is a bun. A chocolate bun. And then I also say ou. We know that that's or. And maybe you've noticed, but I'm not sure we used it already. If you have the word ou without the accent, it means or. If you have ou with the accent, it means where, like the place to go, where. If you have not noticed that, no problem. At least there is no difference in pronunciation. It's just the written word. Or, d'autres, other. Viennoiserie. And I will explain later what it is. It means all the sweet morning buns you eat in Belgium, also in France. But how will I translate that? I don't know really, but all other, I will just say sweet buns. And maybe you will have a word for me, and then please give it to me and I'll put it in the file. So now you're asking, viennoiserie, c'est un mot difficile. So you repeat the word, viennoiserie, because you don't know what it means. C'est un mot difficile. C'est, we know that it is a difficult word. And now, but I will say that also when we're finished, you see already that in French, you put normally the adjective after the noun, after the substantive. So you say it's a word difficult and not a difficult word. There are a few exceptions, but we talk about that. When we have finished, it's a difficult word. Good. And now I'm going to explain, giving you some history. I know you love history, Patrick. So, ce sont des petits pains sucrés. Ce sont is in fact the plural of c'est. It's also the verb être, but it's the third person plural. So it would be, I think in English you say it is, but really it is it are. So I put in between brackets it are, because now we have a plural coming, right? So it is des petits pains, small breads, buns, petits pains, breads. It says sucré. We have again the word sucré. We had it already, and it means sweet. Small, sweet breads. Now, if you see my file, you will see that sucré now has an S. It didn't have an S before. Why? Because in French, you have to adapt the adjective to the noun. If breads is plural, sucré, sweet will be plural. So you have sweets, breads. Of course, not in English. Okay, that's why there is an S. We talk about that later. Comme on mange à Vienne, la capitale d'Autriche. So, small sweet breads, comme, that means as or like, as one mange, we had already mange, eats. In Vienne is, well, it's Vienna, the capital of Austria. Yes, capital of Austria. Austria in French is Autriche. Watch out, don't confuse it with Autriche with a U, because then it's an animal, an ostrich. Okay, so it's Autriche. Okay, so as one eats in Vienna, the capital of Austria. Now I'm giving you some history. C'est Marie-Antoinette d'Autriche, la femme de Louis XVI, qui a introduit le croissant en France. I'm sure you understood already everything, but let me translate. It is Marie-Antoinette, la femme de Louis XVI, the wife. So femme means woman, but also means wife when you're married. The wife of Louis XVI, okay, qui a introduit, who has introduced le croissant en France, the croissant in France. I'm sure you didn't know that. Now, I have to say something. In French, we're going to use very often the past perfect, a introduit. I translated it by has introduced, just so that you understand that a is the verb have, introduit is the verb introduire, but the big difference in conjugation, the conjugation of verbs between French and English is that in English, you use very often the simple past, and in French, much more the past perfect. So that's the main difference. For the rest, future tenses and so on are quite similar. Keep that already in mind. But so you probably would have said who introduced. So I put the has between brackets. So it was, in fact, yes, it was Marie-Antoinette who introduced the croissant in France. And I ask you, tu aimes l'histoire, n'est-ce pas? Tu aimes, you love history. And that n'est-ce pas, that's again this thing, isn't it? Could be anything, because in English you have to adapt it to the verb, isn't it, wasn't it, hasn't it, hadn't it. But in French, you can just keep the n'est-ce pas. Is it not so? And you say, oui, j'adore. Yes, j'adore. I adore means like I really love it. I love it, love it, love it. Really. Is there a mistake here? Let me just see. Isn't it? No. Ah, that's right. So you love history, don't you? Yes, I made a mistake. In English, it's don't you. Good. So how are we going to translate j'adore? Also, I love it, but it's like I adore. Should I say I adore? Yes, let me write it. I adore. I love it tremendously. Okay. Now, yes, adore it, but I don't want that. In French, you can just say j'adore, and you don't have to say I adore it. Just I adore. Good. Oh, just a second, because whoops, my battery is low. I'm sorry for this, Patrick, but I don't want to lose everything I've been recording. So my battery is plugged in. My computer is plugged in, sorry. So I tell you, tu peux commander. You can order. You had already those verbs, so normally you know that. C'est un bon exercice. C'est, remember, it is a good exercise. And here you see already one of the adjectives, good, which is not after the noun, but before. There are 14. I will talk about it later. It is a good, no, I don't want this. Okay, good. So now you say, quel stress. Quel is like if you would say in English, oh, what a stress. What, anything, what is quel? What a stress. Monsieur, monsieur. And remember, instead of saying monsieur, monsieur, you could say madame, madame, or you could say s'il vous plaît, if you don't want to say monsieur or madame. Sir, sir. And what are you going to ask? Je voudrais commander, s'il vous plaît. Je voudrais. That's the conditional tense of the verb vouloir. Forget that for the moment, but you will use that all the time. Je voudrais, I would like. So, je voudrais is I would like, the very polite form of I want. I would like to order, please. Yes, you say all the time, s'il vous plaît. If now you say s'il vous plaît to, like to me, for example, like the informal version, it would be s'il te plaît, because that's the tu te form you. But focus now on the s'il vous plaît, because you need the polite form to go around in Belgium. And what does the monsieur, the sir, say? He says, je vous écoute. I listen, and vous is to you. But in French, instead of saying je écoute vous, if it's a small word, you can put it just after the subject. Je vous écoute. Also remember that in French, écouter does not have a preposition. It's to listen something. I listen you, which is different from English. But we get back to that later. So now you are ordering un café normal, so a normal coffee. No, not coffee, but coffee. S'il vous plaît, please. Un café latte, a café latte that you know, and a croissant. And what does the waiter say? Vous mangez sur place. Vous mangez, you eat. And sur place means, well, on the spot, to eat there. So, vous mangez, you eat. It's like sur place means on the place. I will write on the spot. You know what I mean? Ou c'est à emporter. Or it is to take away. Or it is to, that's the a, take away. Yes, this is not the way you would say it in English, but this is just like literal translation. You say sur place, s'il vous plaît. So on the spot, please. Okay. So now waiting for our order, I ask you, we're almost finished, Patrick, please. Keep on going, almost finished. Dis, Patrick. So dis, you say, it comes from the verb dire, to say, but it's like really to have someone's attention. Like in English, you would say, hey, Patrick. In French, you will say, Patrick, but it's really like, hey. But it comes from the verb to say. Patrick, ça va ton nouvel appartement? Ça va, remember from the first lesson, ça va? Is it okay, your new apartment? Donc, ça va. It is okay. Your, ton, your new apartment. This is not right. Okay. I will correct it later. Apartment. Yes, sure. And what do you notice? That nouvelle could also be nouveau if it's masculine, but you put it in front of the noun. So this is also one of the adjectives, one of the 14 you will not put after the noun, the substantive. Okay? Il est magnifique. And in French, you say, he is magnificent. Now, in English, you have it. When it's an apartment, you say it. In French, you only have he and she. Well, you have it, but not for a noun. It is just it in general. But every object, a table, a cup, paper, whatever, it's he or she. So for the apartment, we will say he is magnificent. Of course, I will put in between brackets it. Dans une maison charmante. In a charming house. Maison is house. Charmante. Why does charmante in French have an E? Because house is feminine. You don't know that, but house is feminine. Okay, you will see that charmante is after the noun, the substantive. This is a normal one, so this is the normal place. Now, how will you know if it's he or she? Because any object is he or she. We will see that later. At a certain point, I think I will start making a study list in Quizlet for you so that you can practice. So this is like an application, Quizlet, maybe you know it, to practice your, well, the language. Like you get the English and then you have to say or to write the French version. Now, what do I suggest when you learn a noun? You don't learn simply if it's le masculine or la feminine, but you immediately add an adjective to it, and an adjective that is very significant different in the masculine or the feminine version. Now we have, for example, we had nouvelle. I asked about your apartment. There's something to say about it because apartment is not feminine, but normally the masculine adjective will be nouveau and the feminine version nouvelle. Okay, so we will add an adjective already when we are studying the vocabulary, because if now I say une belle femme, a good-looking girl, well, of course, femme, no, let me give another example. Une belle table. Table, it's a table, it's feminine. Okay, if you remember une belle table, it will stick better to your memory because belle is feminine for beautiful and beau is masculine. Okay? So if now I have, for example, I have a beautiful or a very nice phone. Phone, téléphone is masculine. I will say un beau téléphone, une belle table. So we will put the adjective so that we know immediately if this word is feminine or masculine, because le and la are not so significant in your brain, in your memory. Woo! So much blah blah. I hope you bear with me, Patrick. So you said it's in a charming house and it's near the Place du Châtelain. Près de la Place du Châtelain. Near, I will not translate it, but, well, in fact, near the Châtelain place. Oh, no, square, sorry. Place in French is square. And it's really a nice square. There is also a market on the Place Châtelain. Châtelain is, well, the person living in a castle. Le Châtelain. Okay, You say one thing more. You say, malheureusement, le sanitaire ne fonctionne pas bien. Malheureusement, that's a good word. It means unfortunately. Malheureusement. Well, later we will see. Heureusement means luckily, and malheureusement, unluckily or unfortunately. Now, watch out. The H in French, you never pronounce. So you don't say malheureusement, there is an H, but you say malheureusement. So unfortunately, all the sanitary, so let me call it sanitary, ne fonctionne pas bien. Doesn't function very well. Doesn't function well. So ne pas is the negation in French. You put the ne before the verb and the pas after the first verb, but in English it's just not. In French, 2 words for the negation. Ne fonctionne pas bien, doesn't function well. So you see, bien is in fact the adverb of good. So bien could be good or well. Almost finished. You say, je dois appeler le propriétaire. I must, je dois is I must, it's the verb devoir. Je dois, I have to, you would say I must, or in between brackets I would say I have to. Appeler, it's to call. So it could be call just in the street, call someone, but can also be by phone. You can say also téléphoner. So I must call, appeler, or you can say téléphoner. But I think appeler is a bit more used. So I must call the owner. Propriétaire, it's the person who has the propriety. So it's his property, sorry, not propriety. Who has the property, he's the owner, okay? I have to call the owner, and then you say, no, I say, the order has, here comes our order. Voici notre commande. Bon appétit. You know that. I don't have to translate it, so I say, here is, voici, we have it again. So I say, here is our order. Voici. Here is our, notre commande is order. Bon appétit. Have a good meal. Have a nice meal. Merci. Thank you. You know all that. I think it's quite too easy for you, Patrick, but we do it all so that we're sure everything is understood. Okay, so we had quite some verbs. If you look on the document and you see all those verbs ending in ER, like aimer, adorer, commander, écouter, manger, emporter, etc., etc., etc. So I noted down in the document the conjugation in the present tense of the verbs ending in ER. It's quite easy because all the singular persons you pronounce the same way. So if we take the verb aimer, to love, j'aime, tu aimes, il aime, nous aimons, vous aimez, ils aiment. Now you watch out if you have aimer starts with a vowel. So you will not say je aime, you will link it together, cut away the E of je, and you say j'aime. And you will also see that if there is an S at the end, like nous ends in S, you will link it to the verb. Nous aimons, vous aimez, ils aiment. For the rest, that conjugation is easy. Then there are some very special verbs. The verbs we had here, which were special, are être, pouvoir, aller, vouloir, devoir, dire. I put the conjugation here. You can look at them, but, well, don't spend too much time on it because I'm a little bit against learning by heart the whole line of all the persons, because very often when you're a foreigner and having to speak a foreign language, you will probably in the beginning limit yourself to the je, I, and the vous, you polite. So don't learn the whole thing by heart. As I said, and you see it in the document, the adjective comes after the noun and is adapted in gender and number. So we had un chocolat chaud, a chocolate hot instead of hot chocolate. We had un lait russe, a milk Russian instead of a Russian milk. We had café latte, the latte, the milky coffee. Also after the noun, un café normal, a normal coffee, une maison charmante, and not charmant. We had an extra E, which makes that you hear the T at the end of, normally you don't pronounce the last T, you say charmant. But if we put an extra E for the feminine, then it becomes charmante. You hear the T, not the E. And then we will have 14 adjectives are placed before the noun. So they're before. We had already 4, and I will complete it. We will get to 14. So there is petit, small is always in front of the noun. Grand, big. Bon, good. Nouvelle, new. Okay, so we will talk about that later. Whoa! I hope you got to the end, Patrick. Now what I will do is I'm going to do the audio. I think that might be enough for you, only the audio, but if you watch the video, you will find the link to the document. I'm going to continue my coffee, and I hope to see you next week. Bye.